you want to learn? Anything specific? Richard, fretboard gymnastics is utterly ridiculous and boring. Ouch. Thanks, Richard. How to play solos without playing scales. If you want to play solos without playing scales, you got to focus on chord tones. You got to focus on the 1, the 3, and the 5 of each chord as you're playing through, and then creating little melodies like that. The scales are really just a way to navigate through the fretboard to get to all these different notes. But the heart of your melody, the heart of everything you're playing, should be these chord tones. I just played a little scale, a little bit of an arpeggio, a little bit of a scale, getting up to that note. Which is going to be, I'm focusing on these certain notes to build my melody, and then the scale is just a means to get to all these different notes. But this is what I teach in solo school. In solo school, that's really the entire focus, is how do we play melodic? How do you improvise melodically without just running up and down scales, without just shredding through the fretboard, or without just playing the pentatonic scale? How do you actually hit all these melodic notes without thinking about it? Because a lot of people think, everybody knows you got to hit chord tones, but students will tell me, well, I can't memorize. It's very hard to remember, oh no, I'm on this chord, now I got to play this scale or this arpeggio, and I got to make sure I hit these notes. Guitarists automate all that. Richard says, not music at all, not even close. Thanks, Richard. Nice guy. Anyways, where was I? Guitarists aren't thinking about, all those things at once. As I'm improvising, as I'm playing over a backing track, and I'm, playing my melody, and I'm improvising, and I'm playing all these solos, I'm not thinking about the specific note that I'm playing. I'm not thinking about the specific arpeggio. You got to automate all these things so that you can just kind of bust it out automatically. And then instead what you're focusing on is you're kind of zooming out, and you're focusing on creating a melody, and you're focusing on your phrasing, and you're focusing on where you want to take it. You become a listener of your own improvisation. You're kind of zoomed out, and you're kind of listening, and then kind of guiding it, slowly steering it towards where you want it to go, instead of being in the moment note by note. And that's the difference between a professional playing and while they're improvising, and someone who just kind of figure out the scale and improvising. They're focusing one note at a time, they're focusing one phrase at a time, whereas a professional musician is completely zoomed out, and he's listening to everything, and that's how he's making his decisions. Play your version of Playing God? I don't remember that. That's from, when was that? That was last summer I released that, right? That was fun. Yeah, I don't remember how to play that. playing over a drone like this, where it's just one note the entire time, allows you to really practice your modes, because you can just switch through all the different modes and all the different scales, because the root stays the same. And then you can really hear the difference between all the scales. Sounds really cool. Explain the case system. I actually don't use the case system, so I don't really know it very well. Literally released a video demonstrating this concept 19 years ago. Love your tone, brother. Thank you, appreciate that. Alright, let's put it on track. It's getting kind of boring. Let's see what we got here. What's up? That's a weird track. Let's see if we can find a better track. What's this? Ooh, sounds cool. listen to Elevated Jam tracks. He's got some good tracks. Yeah, all the time. I bought one of his packs like a month ago or something because I used one of his backing tracks in the video, and someone's like, you gotta pay for that. You can't just buy one track, you gotta buy the entire pack. I saw your podcast with Brandon where you talked about an exercise that you do every day. I've been trying to do it every time. I've been trying to do it, but every time I speed up, I mess up. How do I approach that exercise? You gotta get completely used to that exercise. You gotta get to the point where you can play it over and over again at a comfortable tempo without messing up, where muscle memory completely kicks in, where you can have a conversation or watch a show or something and completely play that at a certain pace. And you got to make sure that you're practicing with a metronome so you know what that pace is and you're actually consistent every time you do it so your speed isn't fluctuating. And then when you speed it up, practice it in short little bursts instead of completely, trying to play it faster, because if you do that, you're going to mess up. So if I can play this at a certain tempo, if I try to speed it up, it goes out of sync. I can't quite handle that speed. So what I would do is I would put the metronome at that speed, and then I would practice it in short little bursts, as many times as I can do it perfectly, because in short bursts we can play a lot faster. So maybe I would do it 2 or 3 times at that speed. Just kind of trying to get used to that, and then I would slowly bring that down as I add more notes. And the main thing is to practice it at a pace that you're comfortable with for a very, very long time. It's more of like an endurance exercise, so just kind of putting on the metronome, finding a tempo that you can play it over and over again. And also you want to make sure you're moving it around, that you're not only practicing it in one area, because it's only 3 notes, it's only working out 3 fingers. So I always switch it. From whole half to half whole. That way I'm working both the first and second finger and the pinky finger. Anyways, that's how you want to practice it. You want to make sure, you completely have it down before you even try and speed it up, to the point where you're not even thinking about it. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. Does that make sense? All right, let's try another track. What's this? What's this one?
Can I swear at a man?
Oh, there's an ad. Stop flexing. Singing my full speed. I'm just kidding. See what happens when you try to show off? Can't show off. Okay, what's this? No Love Blues E minor. I don't like it. A little heavier. Go back to this for a second. It is a tongue twister. It's almost like my fingers don't want to do it. Exactly. That's what's my favorite exercise. If I'm not warmed up, I can't play that. Like right now, I'm so, my fingers are good. Well, loose, so I'm able to do it pretty quick. If I just pick up the guitar the first time of the day, or if I was out all day, I'm home in the evening and I pick up the guitar. I can't play it. I try to play that exercise. Fingers are like, I can do it like 2 or 3 times and my fingers kind of like, they lock up, they get stuck. So that's why I use it as a warm-up exercise. And I know that if I can play that for a while, my fingers are warmed up and then I can go into all my other stuff. Cannot hear you with the track sounding. Can you hear me now or no? Cool. What's my string gauge? I use 10 to 46 on this guitar. There we go. You have other guitars or just Ernie Ball Music Man? I have a few other ones. Barely play them though. I'm trying to find a nice Strat. I've been looking for a Strat for a long time. for your tone. I use the Plini plugin or any of the, like most of the Neural DSP plugins. I also have the Quad Cortex. I never plugged that thing in. I gotta figure out how to use that. I got that like 2 years ago for this thing that I had to do live. And like I spent a week learning how to use it, made a bunch of tones, and then never plugged it in again. It's just so much easier to use all the plugins. But most of the time, like 99% of the time these days, I'm using the Plini plugin for pretty much everything. Sometimes I use some of their other ones. Which ones? I think the Mateus Asado one I've been using sometimes for cleans, but... Daniel, what's up, man? We uploaded the new backing tracks and what is it, Challenge 4? The last videos of Challenge 4 today. I don't think I made a post. I gotta make a post about that, but I don't know if you saw that already. There's a bunch of there's a new chord progression in there. It uses the 3 and the 5, which is really, really fun to play. I think it opens things up. You can get a little bit more melodic with it, and I'll add a few more genres to that as well. I think we have a few. I think there's like 5 or 6 different tracks that we added today. They need to make a Roy Ziv plugin one day. It would just be a copy of this plugin. Speaking of improvising over the 5 and 3 chords, that Careless Whisper, during the verse, it goes to the minor 3. It's very important to highlight that. Otherwise, it'll sound really bad. Everything else you can use pretty much pentatonic, except when it goes to the 5. But, like right there, that's a minor 3 in there. For the verse. Pentatonic. Minor 3. Every time it comes up in the track right now, I always think about solo school.
Did you know that?
Oh, ad. Still using archetype Plini. Yep. Sounds awesome. I had some of the actually I'm not gonna mention which one. I forgot this is live. I had a different Neural DSP plugin like early on, one of the archetypes, and I could never get a good tone out of that. And then I had when they came out with the Plini one, I got the free trial mostly for the clean sounds. I wanted like his reverbs, and I used that. And then I bought it really just to use as an effect, just to use the reverbs for effect. I still wasn't using it as my tone until one day I was like, let's just try it out, and never looked back. Let's try this one.
Hold on.
Your callus reveal? That's funny. Here's a Coldplay song. Pure Satch. What's this one? How does this one go? Is it in G? No. Damn. Something like that?
How to...
Yo, new guitar. How you liking it? This guitar? Not bad. Are you doing economy picking at some moments? Very rarely. If I'm doing economy picking, I'm not treating it as economy picking. It's more like sweep picking between a few like strings. Like that. Or like full 5 or 6 string sweeps. But I'm not actually doing like economy picking like Malmsteen or Frank Ombalo or any of those guys. You know what I mean? What scales do you use? I like to use a bunch of different scales. I like to use the Ionian scale. I like to use the Dorian. I like to use Phrygian. to use Lydian. I like to use Mixolydian. I like to use Aeolian, Locrian sometimes. I like to use, obviously I use the hexatonic scale every time I play the pentatonic, which is just your pentatonic scale, but one extra note, the ninth in there. I like to use the pentatonics as well. I like to use the chromatic scale. I like to use the fifth mode of the melodic minor, super Locrian. And I like to use the fifth mode of the harmonic minor scale, Phrygian dominant. Those are all the scales I like to use. Basic, all the modes, definitely all the modes, yeah. Something like that.
Imagine being...
I already did this one. What's this one? Floyd Rose. My strings rusted, so I wanted to switch them, and when I did, I forgot it was the wrong gauge, so I had to tighten the springs, and it ended up breaking. I've had this problem for already a few minutes, and it's annoying me. I've even shown people in stores how I do it, and they said it's good. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Do you offer courses for that kind of stuff? Or mind helping me? I'll pay, dude. I don't know much about Floyd Rose. That's why I hate Floyd Rose. Back when I used to teach and my students who had a Floyd Rose, their strings would break and I had to replace it. Man, I hated doing that. Where you had to cut the ends and stuff and put it in. But it's really fun to use, you know. I don't have any guitars with a Floyd Rose. I would probably get one eventually because it is really, really fun. But yeah, I can't help you there, man. Sorry. Best thing to do is just to take it to someone who knows what's up, you know? Someone who specializes in that in your town. Where is the studio producer guy? He's sleeping. I'm taking over today. How do you connect the left hand and the right hand on playing guitar? You want to take a lick or take an exercise. It doesn't really matter, whatever you practice, and try and attack one of the notes a little stronger than everything else. And what that does is it creates a point within everything that you're playing where both hands have to synchronize. It gives you something to focus on. Because when you're playing really fast or when you're practicing at a higher pace, it's very hard to focus on trying to synchronize both hands, especially if you're playing a much longer lick. But let's say even just taking something simple like I'm trying to accent that first note. Oops. And that keeps my hands in sync the entire time. But if I'm doing something a lot more complicated, like try and play like, I can't focus on every single note. There's too many notes there, and it's happening way too quick. So I'm gonna try and find one note that I can kind of focus on to attack a little bit harder, or one note that I can focus on trying to get perfect, and that actually helps bring both hands together. And helps with hand synchronicity. At least that's how I do it, and it's helped every time. Hey Ziv, I play an Epiphone and Schecter as my main guitars. I went to Guitar Center to play a Les Paul and felt so much better. Is it all in the gauge of the strings or the guitar? It's in the guitar. The Les Paul, yeah, it was probably the guitar. One of the best guitars I ever played was at a music store a few years ago at Cosmo Music in Ontario, closed down. And it was one of those I forgot what they used to call it, like a reissue of one of the Gibsons or something. It was a Gibson Les Paul, and it was $12,000. And I just picked it up for fun, and it sounded, not that it played like better than other guitars, but the tone was, I think, the best tone I've ever heard from a guitar. I couldn't stop playing. I think I was there for like an hour and a half. I was there with my brother, and I couldn't stop playing it. If it wasn't $10,000, if it was like a few $1,000s, maybe I would have bought it on the spot. It was crazy, but yeah, $12,000 for a guitar is ridiculous. Let's try another track here. This one wasn't very fun. Let's see what we got. Guthrie Govan style track in C minor 7. Oh, this is that classic. Let's see if I know it. That intro is the only thing I know. What does he do there? He goes, so good. Is that the Larry Carlton from JTC? It sure is, yeah. Do you like... Oops, what did I do here? Lost you guys. Do you like Steely Dan? Yeah, I love Steely Dan. Of course. You have Discord, like, do you know? What is the guitar you're playing right now? Also, what lesser-known guitar brands do you recommend the most? I don't know many lesser-known guitar brands. This is an Ernie Ball Music Man Silhouette Special Limited Edition. Lesser-known brands. I don't know. I'd like to join your Discord too if you got... I don't have a Discord. What I do have is Soul School. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. I don't really talk about it too often in public because it's mostly for people who have my courses and stuff. But Soul School is... where'd you guys go? There we go. Soul School is a learning platform and community. I guess at the heart of it, it's a community for guitarists. And it's a learning platform that I built. So it's kind of like similar to Discord, similar to a Facebook group, but way more structured. And there's also an app as well. And you get access to all my courses and everything, but you get to talk to me in there. And you get to post whatever you want. There's feedback. And there's the main point of it is there's like a structured system where I break down my entire playing, basically how to play melodically and how to phrase professionally, all my little phrasing tricks you can learn in Solo School. And what else? But yeah, that's like the closest thing I have to a Discord would be Solo School. So I can ask you more questions on there. You can ask me anything you want. Yeah. If you're in Solo School, yeah, all the people that are in there, you can ask me anything you want. And the community as well. A lot of people already know like the answers to a lot of the questions that I would ask. Daniel says, for anyone interested, I'm in Solo School and it's great. It's not like any other online course that you've ever taken or will take. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate that. Dude, I bought your hexatonic course and I don't have time to go over it because of school. Take your time with it, man. Just, don't look at it as this big kind of like 3-part course that you got to take. Just whenever you have a few minutes, watch some of the videos and, try and practice it. Just take it one little step at a time. Hey, Roy, I'm a huge fan, man. Thanks, Mike. Would you mind talking about your composing process? For my original songs or for solos? I said, I've been considering it for a few years. I just can't afford it. I've been following your channel for 4 years now. Wow, it's a long time. Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, the whole thing with Solo School, my goal with Solo School is, the coolest thing for me about Solo School is I'm learning how to teach my own playing, which is something I've been trying to figure out for years. Like if you took, when I first started posting videos online, when was that? 2016. I think in 2016 is when I started. People started hitting me up for private lessons, wanting to learn my style. And I had no idea at the time. I'm thinking back to like the way I used to like try and figure out my style, and it was like completely all over the place. I thought my entire style was like about arpeggios, but it's like, how do you even start to teach that? Because as I'm playing, there's like a million little tiny triads and arpeggios, and throughout the years I got better at dissecting my playing. And then when I started releasing courses and people started buying my courses, there's still no interaction there, and then during COVID, obviously I stopped teaching in general. I stopped teaching one-on-one, and I moved everything online, and it was just courses. And the closest thing was the hexatonic scale masterclass. Was the closest thing I got to like kind of breaking down a lot of what I do in a lot of my playing. But there's a lot more that goes into it. And then when I launched Solo School, the first version of it about a year and a half, or maybe a year ago, a little over a year ago, before it had any of my systems or anything, that's when I started really interacting with my students, and doing live Zoom calls, and people would ask me all these different questions like, oh, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? And I didn't know a lot of these answers. I wasn't sure. And I would go back during the week and I would dissect my playing and be like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Or someone would ask me, how do you do this with your pick? And I'd be like, oh, it's this. And then I was like, well, is it? This is what I think I'm doing, but let me video myself and check. And then I would, I would watch my videos back and I would slow it down and be like, wow, that's not what I'm doing at all. I'm actually doing this. And I think it took me, this past January is when I was like, I got to figure out how to teach my system. I've been trying to figure out how to teach melodic playing and my phrasing and basically my entire playing for a very long time. And it took me a few months until it finally clicked. I don't know where it came out of nowhere. And I realized it all has to do with the 5-chord and the 3-chord. And even now, 3 months into Solo School and I'm teaching that system, I'm making all these breakthroughs every week as I'm teaching them new things. I'm realizing, oh, this connects to the hexatonic scale. And not only that, this actually connects to how I treat upper structure triads. It all has to do with the 3 and the 5. I had no idea. And then everything revolves into the hexatonic scale, and there's a bunch of really cool stuff. So now my goal is I want to be able to fully get someone to, completely understand what I'm doing and teach it in a way that actually sticks as well. Not just, a course that you kind of take and forget. Anytime a student's like, okay, I get what you're doing here, but, I practice it and it's just not sticking. I'm not able to use it. I'm trying to figure out why. I'm reading all these different books on teaching and the theory behind that. And I'm just trying to figure out ways, how do you actually get everything to stick? And that's what we're doing in Solo School. But aside from that, I think it's just a really cool community as well. And I want that eventually to become my number one thing. I just want to be in Solo School every day, not having to worry about, some of my other courses. And I think eventually too, I'll just stop with the individual course sales as well and just keep the Solo School going. But it's really, really cool. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. It was a ton of work, a lot of work, but it still is a lot of work. It's pretty much, I think 90% of my time goes into Solo School still. And I'm hoping I can eventually cut that back because it's really a lot of work, but it's really cool. I love it, and I like what we've been able to build, and I think it's only going to get kind of better from here. Mike, original tunes. I'm a huge fan. Would you mind talking about your composing process? It changes from song to song. When I wrote Leap of Faith, which is one of my favorite songs, I had the rhythm idea for it. I wrote that when I was in high school, and I just never had a melody or anything to put on top of that. And every time I tried, I just couldn't come up with anything. And then years later, a few years ago, I finally, I just kind of had that on a loop. So a lot of times it starts with just coming up with a cool either chord progression or idea, and then it all kind of stems from there. So Leap of Faith started with just this. And I would have that on loop, and I would try a bunch of different melodies over and over again. And some of his songs are, I think, almost every, 4 songs out of the 6 songs of my EP have odd time signatures. I don't do that on purpose. It just kind of happens sometimes where I'll come up with a cool rhythm and then I'll be like, oh no, it's in 7/8. Now I gotta figure out a melody that fits that. And then when I try to write in odd time signatures, I try to make the melody sound very fluid, very normal, so you don't hear when the 1 comes in, I don't want that to be abrupt. Once that happens, when I have some type of intro and a melody, then I just try to kind of treat it like a song and a vocal, and I try to treat it more like a story, and I try to see where I can take it. So in Leap of Faith, you have your main melody. You gotta repeat a few times with a different ending. And now I want to take the story somewhere else. So now I'm here. And then the entire time when I'm composing, now that I've taken it somewhere, now I got to come up with an idea in this new area. Then when I come up with that idea in this new area, I'm trying to figure out, how do I get back home? How do I get back to my main melody? So then from there, I got to figure out, because I want everything to sound natural. I don't want anything to be abrupt. One thing I hate with songs is when they change keys, and then when they try to go back or something, it's like very abrupt. I want everything to flow very, very smoothly. And sometimes I get stuck. That's really where I get stuck in composing, is how do I get back to where I was smoothly? So then I'm trying to figure out a way to get back to that. How's it go? I think we go back to it. So the same melody, but now an octave higher. And then from there, I kind of take it into an interlude. It just, the whole thing, I'm just trying, every time I'm composing, I'm trying to see where it's gonna go. I'm trying to hear where it's gonna go, and I'm trying to just follow like the natural path of the melody of the song. And the problem with that is every time it brings me somewhere new, I'm stuck in this new area. Sometimes it's in a completely different key, and I gotta figure out some elaborate way to get back to that. So I'm trying to keep it melodic. I'm trying to also, I want to be able to show off and have some kind of cool ideas, but I want the whole thing to kind of be as like a one whole song with a melody that repeats, that always comes back in a bunch of different ways. With Define Gravity, I had the track already. I actually produced the track for the singer, like I think a year before that I don't think we ever did anything with. And then when Jam Track Central hit me up for the the Guitar Rock Ballads album, that track was kind of a ballad, and then I had to figure out some type of chord progression or something, and I also didn't have much time. I think they needed it in like 2 weeks or something. So I came up with this. Now, that entire thing just comes from outlining these two chords, a B major and a G major. So that's kind of what I'm visualizing, and just trying to find some type of kind of like repeated idea that sounds really, really nice, that fits those chords, but has some type of like a little bit of uniqueness to it. And then what I try to do is I try to really lean into whatever vibe I got from that melody and from that progression. So this sounds a little bit unique, when it goes to that G major, that's modal interchange right now. We're not supposed to go to a G major. That's not the chord. So you get this really nice sound. It kind of had this very kind of like floating, airy sound. So now I'm trying to lean into that, and everything I'm composing, I'm trying to fit into that vibe. Now with Define Gravity, again, I tried to take it somewhere else, and then I got into a completely different key, and that's where I got stuck. When I was composing that, I didn't know how to get back from that new key into my original key so we can get back to like an octave higher or something. And when you hear when you listen to the song, there's like an area where like the chords keep changing and building and stuff. That's just me trying to play chord after chord after chord and resolve it nicely, so eventually I can get back to my key. But yeah, with my composing, a lot of it just kind of starts with some type of rhythmic idea, chord progression, and then I try to kind of lay a melody on top of that. And then whatever idea I have there, I just try to take that, lean into that, the vibe of it as much as I can throughout the song, and then see where that takes me. And then wherever it takes me, I try to just kind of expand through that and always go back to that central melody as well somehow. But I like kind of like letting go and seeing like how far can I leave that area, and then I try to kind of come back. Exactly, and then you end up writing an 8-minute song. So then another thing too, I'm trying to keep it, fairly short as well. So I'm trying to figure out how it all kind of like fits together, because sometimes all these different parts and interludes, I don't want anything to sound like a random part. Sometimes you listen to a lot of these not newer bands, but bands that try to be more like Dream Theater, or like they try to do more of the progressive rock, and it just sounds like part. It doesn't sound like it all fits together. So every time I'm composing, I'm really trying to make the whole thing flow from one part to the next, because there are a lot of different parts in some of these songs. And then I always try to, I guess it depends on the song, but I think almost every song I have, it kind of builds up. I try to build it up to something. But yeah, I think the entire time I'm composing, I'm trying to kind of think of it as like a story. what do we have here? Can you do Crying Machine? Yeah, I can do Crying Machine. I'll do that in a second. What is your approach to switching gears in terms of speed when phrasing? What do you mean by that? Nice to see you, man. Can we hear you solo a bit on the track Cinematic Rock Ballad Guitar Backing Track Jam in A minor? Sure. Cinematic Rock Backing Track. Did I miss something? Ballad. A minor. Is this it? Something like that. If you're taking a request, party in the USA. All right, I'll do that after as well. Crying Machine. We'll definitely do that one. After you have the melody and chords, not to steal the chat, but how to compose parts for the rest of the instruments without getting in the way of the guitar. It depends. What I try to make a riff. You got to think of it more like what do they call it? What do you call it when there's like two melodies playing together? Lost the word. Like counterpoint. You gotta think of it like counterpoint. Okay, whatever. If you have some type of riff, especially if I'm writing on top of a riff, I try to make sure whatever I'm playing fits over that riff perfectly. So like once in a while, I might do some type of line that follows that riff, or maybe harmonizes the riff. You know, or if you know the riff, there's like a held note, I might do 3 or 4 notes, and then if there's like a longer part to the riff, I might hold a note. You know, I'm trying to kind of play off of that. I go high, you go low. Exactly, you know. That's really one way to do it, but I also try not to overdo it, you know, because I guess the melody is like the central part. But I also don't want to just, you know, if I'm writing, I don't want the chord progression to just be the entire time, you know. I want it to be a little bit more interesting. So I'm also kind of thinking of that as well. I try to approach the rhythm as well. I want the backing track to sound cool sometimes. So I try to approach kind of creating the track in a way, kind of like composing the melody as well. I'm trying to compose the rhythm of the track in a cool way. If you look at my song Currents, instead of just going, which is what the chord progression is, it goes, Now, my melody on top of that follows that exact same melody, the exact same melody of that chord progression. So the chord progression goes, and my entire first line of the melody goes. So that is taken directly from the backing track. I forgot how it goes. But anyways, everything I'm trying to do as I'm writing that track, I'm trying to follow. I don't want anything to clash. But what I'll do first, a lot of times, is I'll write the actual kind of rhythm part and try to make that a little bit cooler. How's that go? Hold on a second. How's that go? Redo. Let's pretend I didn't do that. like that. How do you make your guitar sound like studio quality even when just practicing? I don't know. Maybe it's a plug-in that I got. Nice reverb. A little bit of delay. I came up with this technique that I call drag notes. If you bend the high E string off the neck a little, like that, you get 2 notes depending on how far. Have you seen anyone use this technique a lot? I have not. I think it's all yours. Is that what you mean? Party in the USA. Party in the USA. I'll give you a different version of it. Let's try this one. Does that sound like Party in the USA to you? Like that. That's a great riff for a pop song. Destroy BOTDF songs sung by BOTDF. Scream for my ice cream. Guitar destruction. I don't know what that is. I know Ice Cream Man though. Can other instrument players join the solo school like a saxophonist? I mean, you could. The whole thing centered around guitar. You could if you just want to, like, I guess, talk about melody and improv and stuff. I mean, I don't know anything about saxophone. And all the exercises and, you know, in solo school are all for guitar. But at the end of the day, it's a community first as well, you know, and it's very interactive and everybody talks and people log in every day. And share stuff. So yeah, you could definitely join as a saxophone player. Guitar is so fun to play. How many years ago did you started playing? I've been playing for 21 years. 22 years. I'm playing around 22 years. A little over 20 years. Hearing you play just makes me smile, bro. One day I hope to be that fluent on the fretboard. Thank you for the inspiration. Awesome. Appreciate that. And you will. You will. You know, it's just about putting in the practice. I'm doing stuff today that, you know, when I started playing guitar, I thought would be impossible. How much practice would you say you get in these days, and is it more about checking out new stuff or maintaining where you're at? It's mostly about maintaining where I'm at. My speed drops a lot. Well, the speed that I want is like useless. Like I don't use it in anything. But it annoys me when my speed drops, and if I don't practice a lot, my speed goes down. Nothing noticeable to anybody else, but to me it is. So sometimes when I practice, it's that. Aside from that, is just kind of tightening everything up. It annoys me when I make I make a lot of mistakes when I improvise, and you know, I play pretty much every day. The problem is when guitar and everything you do is when your job is centered around guitar, and I gotta have a guitar in my lap when I'm giving you guys feedback, and when I'm recording the lessons, or when I'm scripting new lessons, or when I'm coming up with new ideas, the guitar is always there. So it's like very easy to quickly procrastinate, and you know, I just start kind of playing, and then I'll put on a track, or if I'm making a track for solo school, I'll end up jamming on it for like 2 hours. The other day I was trying to come up with a new chord progression for something we're working on, and I ended up for like 2 or 3 hours just messing around with it, and time just flies. So when I'm improvising, I'm going for a lot of kind of different ideas. It's mostly phrasing and kind of tightening. The main thing I'm focusing on, I guess, when I'm practicing is just tightening my timing. And I want to get to the point where I'm just always playing the same stuff. So I never have to try new stuff and then make mistakes. Because if you ever watch any of the greats improvise, they never make a mistake. It's like they never hit a wrong note. They never, because they're just playing the same stuff they're used to all the time. And I have that already. Every time, I'm playing the same stuff, but I'll always end up doing something, trying something new in the middle, and I'll completely fumble the whole thing. I want to get to the point where at least force, if I can tell myself, like, just play something perfect without messing up, I think that would be cool. But I think I get a decent amount of practice, not as much as I would want to. But I'd still play a lot. Mostly just improvising and coming up with kind of ideas and melodies. What was your first guitar? My first guitar was a little classic. Actually, the first guitar I ever had was a rental. It was an electric guitar my dad rented for me from the store, and I didn't know how to use it. So I just tuned everything to make it sound like a chord, because it didn't sound good to me when I just strummed it. And I would just kind of like strum it like that on heavy distortion. Eventually we returned that. My dad got me a little classical guitar. I think my parents still have that at the house. Every time, I always tell my wife, every time we go back, I got to look for that. I'll make a video about that. That was, again, technically my first guitar. It wasn't great. It was a little classical. And then after that, I had a Squier. That was my first real electric guitar. I had a little Squier, a Squier Bullet. So they're like a little bit smaller. I think I got that when I was 12 years old. And then a few months later, within maybe half a year later, I traded that in for a Jackson Dinky that I still have right there. Or is it here? Yeah, somewhere in this house. There's a black Jackson, but it doesn't work. I got to get it fixed. I haven't played that guitar in like years, but I still keep it. So that was my main guitar throughout all of high school, all the shows I played. I was in tons of bands. All the shows I played in high school and everything was with that Jackson guitar. And then I got this guitar when I was in, I think, the 11th grade, 10th grade, as a gift. And that's it. And then everything after that, it was just guitars that companies sent me. Did I buy anything new? No, I bought a classical guitar on my honeymoon in Mexico, on the streets of Mexico. I think every other guitar that I have a Squier here that somebody gave me one time back when I used to teach. Every other guitar I think I got has like a brand deal. But yeah, we're probably gonna get a new Music Man this year, and I've been looking for a nice Fender Strat. My first guitar was a Squier Bullet series also. I love that guitar. I wish I still had that one. Have you ever felt discouraged and ready to give up on the guitar? Never. I don't think, discouraged. Maybe I felt discouraged, yeah. I mean, when YouTube came around, when you started seeing like guitar videos on YouTube and you'd see like nobody's in their bedroom just playing like phenomenally, that's when I was like, oh, I have no chance. Like, this is like before I went to Berkeley, or like right when I got to Berkeley. So yeah, I would get discouraged in terms of like, maybe making a career out of it and stuff, or how good I'm going to get, there's always somebody faster. And I mean, there's kids on YouTube that are playing my own solos better than I can play them, which is pretty crazy. And they're like, I don't know, they look like they're like 5 or 6 years old. I think I saw like a 4-year-old or someone, playing one of like my most difficult solos, and it was like perfect. So there's always so much better. So maybe I used to get discouraged kind of seeing people play faster, people doing all these crazy things that I couldn't do. When the whole modern guitar movement came out, with Tosin Abasi and Aaron Intervals and Pliny and all these guys, they were doing things like, and Polyphia, they're doing things that I can't do in terms of techniques, nor do I, care to practice. So yeah, maybe at the beginning when you first see that, it's a little discouraging, but in terms of giving up, no, I love guitar so much. It's the only thing, like, if you want me to waste 10 hours, just put a guitar in my hand. That's why it's so difficult for me to do work, because the guitar is always here, and I'm constantly playing. I could play, to this day, I could spend like 4 or 5 hours, coming up with lessons, recording, editing the videos, scripting, making the tracks, uploading it, completely tired. And then the only thing I want to do after that is sit around for another 5-6 hours and just, jam. I probably played almost every single backing track you could find on YouTube. I love playing guitar, so I don't think I've never wanted to give up. I don't think I've ever given up guitar. There was a time when I didn't play a lot. I used to produce, after Berkeley, I used to produce music for like electronic artists and DJs and stuff, and I wanted to be a pop producer for a very long time. And I stopped practicing guitar for a very long time, for several years, but I would still play it from time to time, and every time I did, it would always kind of bring me back. Like I think during that time, I bought a few Guthrie Govan backing tracks from like Jam Track Central and stuff, so I was still kind of into it, but I didn't really practice. I didn't really care for it. I wasn't listening to like guitar music. I really didn't care for it, but I still kind of practiced. I would have never given up, but it wasn't my focus. And it wasn't until I saw the Generation Axe tour with Steve Vai back when they were touring, and after that show, I wasn't even gonna go see that show. I kept hearing about it, and I was like, oh, that's cool, but like I'm not really into guitar music anymore. And then I think it was on Facebook or YouTube, I saw somebody had like a video of Steve Vai and Malmsteen playing Black Star together in harmony. And like I grew up on these guys. I grew up listening to Malmsteen. I grew up listening to Vai, and seeing Steve Vai play Black Star with Malmsteen was like, I was like, I can't miss this show. I think I bought like 5 or 6 tickets for me and my friends, see who would want to go. And all my friends came. We all went. And after that show, I came home and I wrote Leap of Faith. I spent like a few days. I wrote Leap of Faith. And then I was like hooked. I was like, this is awesome. Like kind of got me back into guitar. And then I sent that track to Jam Track Central. And I was like, if anything happens with this, then I'm going to start producing. I'm just going to focus on guitar. And if they don't message me back or anything, then I'm not going to do anything with it. And then they hit me up like the next day. I woke up. I had an email from Jam Track Central, which is now JTC Guitar. And they're like, yeah, re-record the video. The video was really, really bad. It was just in my room. Like, re-record the video and yeah, we'll sign you on. And here's how it works, blah, blah, blah. And then I started posting stuff online and that took off. But I think that was really the only time where I kind of stopped playing for a bit. Also, when I went to the Generation Axe tour, as I'm sitting there watching the show, I realized the drummer who's playing drums for all of them, for Vai, Malmsteen, who was there, Tosin Abasi, Zach Wilde, and Nuno Betancourt. So there was one band, including the drummer, obviously, and then the guitar players kept changing. And the drummer is a guy I went to Berkeley with. So seeing that as well, I was like, damn, that's really cool. He was able to make it this far that he's like, touring with some of my heroes. So that was also kind of like a little shocker to me, and that kind of pushed me to get back into guitar. I checked your guitar course and it says all access pass is unavailable until 2025. Where did you see that? I gotta look into that because that shouldn't be up, but how old were you when you started playing? I think I was 12. I was 12 years old. No, 11. 11 or 12. I think 11. I love the guitar too. I just wish I could enjoy more than I already do, and I just want to start feeling free on it. I feel like I'm just not practicing correctly and practicing the right things. I will say the best part about guitar, and why I love it so much, is there's no obstacles in what I want to do, what I hear, and what I want to play. I feel completely free when I'm holding a guitar. There's no, I'm not discouraged. There's nothing that I can't do. The only thing I can't do is sometimes, maybe I want to play something like crazy and I'm not fast enough, but I know that I can practice. I have the speed practice technique to get to whatever speed I want. So getting to the point where the entire fretboard is completely free and you can do anything you want is the best feeling, because any music I hear in my head, I'm able to put down on the guitar. That's why it's so cool to just kind of sit back. Well, I love the guitar so much, I can just put on a backing track and just play anything I want, and anything I hear, I was like, oh, this would be cool. I can try it out. And it's really cool. You get to the point where it's like I'm entertaining myself in real time by playing the guitar, if that makes sense. But that's my whole goal with solo school. That's what I want to give the students. I want to get them to the point where they could just put on a track and enjoy hearing back what they're playing in real time as they're improvising, without stressing about the notes, without stressing about the backing track, and it's while making it sound super melodic and and very professional with the phrasing and everything. So that's my whole goal, and as I'm always trying to kind of dissect my playing and figure out how can I teach this and get my students to also be able to do that. Find a cool careless whisper thing. Let's try this. I thought it was a backing track. Why are they playing it? There's a rock version. There's no funk version, eh? What's this one? gotta go eat. Thanks for sticking around. Really appreciate it. I'll keep the live stream replay if you want to go back and hear some of the stuff. Solo School, my new program. It's been out for 3 months. We close it every 3 months. I try to keep the group small in there so we know everybody by their names. It's a great community. It's a great program. It's currently open. We're still accepting a few students. Let me see if there's definitely space. We're not sold out yet. We just opened a few days ago. I don't have the link here, but yeah, there's definitely still space. We're going to close it on August 31st. Last time we sold out within 4 days, but I think there's definitely still time to join. If you have any questions on Solo School, just send me an email. We're checking. I'm trying to personally answer all the emails this week instead of my assistant, but it's very cool. It's not just another course, although you do get access to every single one of my courses. It's more of like a learning platform that I built. It's a community for guitarists, and it's all about how to sound melodic when you solo, how to phrase professionally, how to make your notes sing. It's built around interaction, feedback. You get feedback from me, you get feedback from my trained coaches, and you get feedback from the community. One thing that's been really cool about Solo School is when it first started, I was giving everybody feedback, and a lot of the students in Solo School have learned how to give feedback the same way that I give feedback. So a lot of the newer students that are joining, when they're playing some of the earlier lessons and the earlier exercises, and they're posting it, some of the students are giving them feedback exactly what I would have said as well. So it's really cool how they've been able to kind of learn my feedback style. That's one of the coolest things, because at the beginning I was like, damn, giving everybody feedback is a lot of work. Although it's really cool because through that feedback, and this is another thing why Solo School is so cool, okay, compared to all my other courses. My other courses, like, I'll give you an example, Guitar Modes Navigator. I released that course in, in December of this past year, okay? I worked on it for 2 months, every single day, and then I put it out. I think it's good. I did the best I can. I worked on it for a very long time. I made sure that it had everything you need, and it's perfect, and I put a ton of work into it. But what if everybody took the course and, something was kind of, wasn't quite there? Maybe they had a question. There's nothing you can do. The course is done. With Solo School, I built it in real time. So when everybody joined in May, the course wasn't like the lessons that I'm giving them every week, they weren't done. I made them every single week, and based on the videos that they posted, I was able to see what they were getting and what they weren't, and then I completely pivoted. Like right away in the first, I had a huge plan that I planned this for a month. I had a huge plan on how it was going to go. Completely changed within the first week when I saw some of the videos they were posting. I was like, oh, they're not quite getting this concept. We got to go back and we got to further work on this concept. And then somebody asked a question about my phrasing, and I was like, all right, we got to insert phrasing into this. And then I realized some people can't even build nice lines. Forget about being able to improvise, using the pentatonic. Their lines don't sound good because they don't know where to add space. Okay, let's come up with an entire here's a framework. And I had to sit down and dissect a bunch of my playing, and I was like, oh, there's like 4 or 5 frameworks that I use to like create a story when I'm improvising. Okay, let me show them that. And I think it's only going to get better and better. I think the further we go and, the more things we add in the interactive part of it, of Solo School, where people are asking questions and I'm able to see in real time what they're getting, what they're not getting. They're posting a video and I was like, oh, they understood that concept, but this concept isn't quite there. Okay, let me go back to the drawing board. The next lesson, we're going to address this. So everything's being addressed in real time. So you take, let's say you're going through the first lesson, and when you get to the next video, there's already going to be a little thing at the beginning where I'm saying, hey, listen, all of you are doing this completely wrong. This is how it should be. It should be like this. This is what's going to make it sound better. And then the next time, hey, I noticed a lot of you were actually doing this, this, and this. Try and fix that when you're practicing it this way. I think it's really cool. I think it's great. Aside from that, it's a community. You also get access to all my courses as well. Yeah, I think it's very, very cool. If you have any questions, send us an email. The way it works is every week there's these guided play along challenges that basically push you to improvise in very specific strategic ways, kind of like these little constraints. And that's how, you kind of get all these skills to stick. And it's cool because all the students that have been, at least, since May, that have been consistently posting videos for feedback, you're able to see the difference. You're able to see that like let's say I taught them like a few phrasing things, or in their past feedback, I was like, oh, make sure you rake into your bends. You're not raking into your bends, or your bends aren't quite there, or your vibrato is way too quick. It sounds nervous. Or you're not adding vibrato at all. And then they're posting a video and it's like, whoa, what a difference. Like, is this the same person? And you go back and watch a previous video. I was like, man, that little thing, like the coolest thing is injecting these little phrasing ideas into their playing. Your solo could be the exact same solo, could be the exact same improvised, even if you don't have vibrato, good bends or anything. And all of a sudden you add this little like cool slide that I showed you, and it completely elevates the improv, the solo. It's really cool to see. And that just kind of like, motivates me and pushes me to like get even better at teaching and to figure this stuff out as well. And if someone's like, I don't really quite get something, it's like we go back to the drawing board, or like, okay, what can I do in the next lesson to address this before we move on? Which is really cool. We also do live calls. There's live calls twice a month. So the next one is on this Thursday coming up. Where are we at today? Monday? So yeah, this Thursday is going to be a call with me on Zoom. And you can just ask me anything about your playing. We can cover everything from phrasing to speed, fretboard visualization. Everyone just kind of hangs out, which is really cool. And then throughout the week, you can ask questions. You can interact with everyone. One thing I noticed, so in the back end of the platform that we built, I could see the stats. I think it was like 80% of the students were logging in almost daily. It was every single week throughout the past 3 months they were logging in daily. So some people might not interact. Some people will never post a feedback video because, they just don't feel comfortable. But students are still in there every day. They're hitting likes. Some people you can send me a private message in Solo School. You can directly talk to me or any of the other coaches. I know a few people that have actually made friends in Solo School as well. It's just a really cool platform, and I'm still working on it. I really hope it, can become kind of like my number one thing, and that the one thing that I can focus on. Daniel says, it's a great community with great people along with the awesome course material. Yeah, Daniel's been in the course since May. I think he joined in May. Great guitar player, and he's getting better with, all the videos he's been posting. But yeah, if you have any questions, email us this week. I'm checking, or I'm getting forwarded most of the emails, so I've been answering everyone. Trying to answer as many people as I can. I realize when I answer people, a lot of the time they end up joining. I end up seeing their names as well. It's just sometimes it's hard to answer all the emails that we get, but I am trying my best to answer everyone. So yeah, if you have any questions, any specific questions, let me know. I might do another live stream. Maybe I'll do one every day because this was kind of fun. But I might do like an official live stream maybe next weekend to talk about like specific things in Solo School. Maybe show some people, do a little walkthrough inside the course. But the sales page explains everything. It's pretty much exactly as this. But yeah, there's still 6 days left. You can check it out at roysofmusic.com. Thanks for sticking around. I'll see you guys next time.